Looking at yourself in a mirror is a term a lot of people use to describe kind of reflecting on your own thoughts or beliefs. And I was able to kind of take this concept and apply it to my whole life. I was able to do this because my senior year of high school, right? A year a lot of people will consider, one of the best years of your life. I spent a lot of time by myself, and I was kind of in a little rough place for a bit. My dad's girlfriend lived with my dad and I, and they were going through a nasty breakup. So I kind of hit the road a little bit. And for whatever reason, just didn't really hang out with a lot of friends at that time and kind of got by myself. And while I started, in a depressive state, right, and maybe that's you out there, I was able to kind of use this concept of looking at yourself in a mirror and take it to a whole new level and really start an internal dialogue with myself that I continue every single day. And maybe you're not in that situation, right? Maybe you're not dealing with a hard time. But I think after having done this for a little bit and practiced it, I really think this is something everybody could benefit from. And I've seen it before where people, they spend too much time chasing things and they don't spend enough time actually reflecting on themselves and asking themselves questions. And it just doesn't end up good for them, right? Because they don't know their self. They haven't worked through trauma in their past. And I think by having an internal dialogue with yourself and practicing this mindfulness method of reflection, you can really take your life to the next level. And so I want to bring how I did this and kind of what it is to you in 3 ways. First, what is this? What am I even talking about? I've mentioned internal dialogue. I've mentioned, kind of dealing with your trauma and mindfulness. But what is it that I'm talking about? Number 2, I want to kind of show you maybe the best situation where you can kind of practice this method and maybe some of the environments and maybe what you would need, even though you don't need anything to do this. And thirdly, I kind of just want to talk about what you can actually get from this practice. So, what can come out of this practice? And I'm actually going to start with number 3, what you can get out of this practice. So you can get a couple things out of this, a lot of things really, because like I said, this is something that deals with your interaction part of your body, right? Your brain. Your brain interacts with everything. So by really manipulating your brain and by improving your brain, upgrading your brain and yourself, you can affect every situation because you are dealing with every situation. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I think you can get from this method. Another thing on that same type of kind of way is that you can really start to think of yourself as a third person, right? By using this method, which I'll talk about later in the video. You can begin to think of yourself a third person, and that removes your ego a lot of times, right? So when you are, when you're in a group project with somebody and they really, really want to do something, and you really don't want to do that because your way is the best. Well, when you start to think of yourself as a third person, you kind of think of your idea as just another idea, and it really puts it in perspective that whatever idea you have, it's not just great, automatically. Like, you really think about it, and you think about, well, I'm coming at it from this perspective. That's probably why I have this idea. They're coming at it from their perspective, and by understanding yourself, you also start to understand other people. So that's another thing you can get, is just kind of understanding people better. Another thing I think you can get from this is you can be a better friend. I noticed this in myself, right? When I began this practice, yes, I would kind of get away every now and then, and sometimes my friends would want to hang out and I'd have to say no. But I was able to come back to the fold stronger and better able to help the people God has put in my life, right? I was able to come back, and through this kind of meditation, mindfulness, reflection period, and just kind of going away and do something for a bit, I can come back and I can give wisdom to my friends that really need it and are, hurting. And that kind of leads me to my last point, is you can kind of deal with trauma a little better. I think a lot of people, with trauma, they kind of just want to push it away from them, right? They don't want to deal with it. And for me, I don't really do that anymore. I used to kind of do that. I used to just not want to think about it because it hurt, right? And I've had some trauma. I'm sure many people have had more trauma than me. But I've had some things not go the best in my life. And I would kind of push that away or not think about it and just be like, yeah, it sucks, I was sad. But with this method, you actually want to instigate your trauma, right? So when my friends come to me, like I just mentioned in the last point, right? My friends would kind of come to me and ask for advice, and I was able to help them more. And say they were talking to me about a breakup. I was very hesitant to encourage them to do anything that would be similar to kind of like forgetting about the breakup, right? Forget about it, man. Like move on, like take your mind off of it. No, that's not what I would actually encourage, because that's not what helped me. What helped me is actually thinking about it more. So what I was more likely to do with them is to say something like this. Yeah, man. Oh my gosh, dude. Like, really empathize with them. But then I would say, so, what was the thing that you liked the most about her? What was the most special thing she said to you? Because I want you to think through that so you can leave it behind, but the job's completed. The box is empty. You know what's in it. It's not, it's not a ticking time bomb until it blows up. Your trauma blows up. Your trauma's dealt with. Your trauma's disarmed. You've thought through it. You felt the pain, and it's gone now. Truly gone. True closure, right? And so doing this in your brain with your trauma, you're able to actually kind of really deal with, what's going on inside your brain, right? So that leads me to the second thing is, okay, if you're still interested in this after I told you what you could get, where would you kind of want to do this at? And for me, it was always like, where you would take a significant other, I would go do that with myself, right? So like, I'd go out to eat by myself a lot. I would go get something to eat, and then I'd go sit on like I live by a lake, right? I would go sit and look at the sunset on the lake. Or I would go for a late night drive with my dog. Or I would listen to music by myself. Or I would try to encourage some type of emotional reaction and something within me to really get my gears turning. And oftentimes that's when that revelation would occur, right? That's when that epiphany would happen. And so I really think that's a good way to kind of look at it. But it's all about, you. When you start to really try to do this, and when you really start to try to know yourself more and explore yourself more, you will know where you need to go. And you'll know what you need to do. Many of you probably know a place like that now. It's just about doing it more. You just want to go somewhere where you can think, right? You don't want to go somewhere where your mind's going to be like your job, or like that. No, go somewhere where you can think and where you're going to feel good, right? Like go somewhere where you have clarity. Nothing's distracting you. You can think in a, very clear way. And make sure to bring something to write stuff down with you. I actually didn't do that at first, but recently that's really helped me, right? When you have these epiphanies, the last thing you want to do is forget about them. You got to write that down so you can't forget about them. And, besides probably trying to give the recommendation to go somewhere where you would take a significant other, I would also say, think about like exploring, right? If you're exploring yourself and you're seeing things, go explore something that's going to inspire you, right? Like a hike, or exploring a cave, or exploring a part of a city you've never been to, or seeing something new by yourself, right? Like that can really help you, really, really help you do this strategy, right? That's another good way to think about it. So the third point, which is really the first point, what is this? And you may be able to kind of catch a little bit of it from how I've talked about it in passing, but the big thing that this method is it's an internal dialogue. And it's an internal dialogue with yourself as if you're a third person, right? So just in the same way a therapist would kind of talk to you, right? And a therapist would kind of prod at you, and a therapist would ask you questions. Ask yourself those same questions, right? Debate yourself. You have an idea, debate yourself on it. You're sad. Why are you sad? Dig deep into that, right? And get somewhere where you can be vulnerable and where you can show emotion, so you can really investigate yourself and know yourself more, and write these things out, right? And really try to have an experience by yourself where you know that you will have clarity, and that your brain is centered on really, really, truly just growth and exploration and discovery, and just really meditate on yourself, right? And meditate on your past decisions and make it a way of life, right? Although I said, you want to get away, this is also just a way of life, right? So where everything you're thinking, you need to start checking yourself internally, right? You need to start asking yourself, okay, yeah, but I can also see it from this point of view, right? Perspective. That's another great way that you can do this, is perspective. So to summarize this, it's an internal dialogue you have with yourself where you're discovering, where you're exploring, where you're applying, where you're kind of figuring things out, where you're dealing with your trauma, right? Where you are actively knowing why you do things more. And when you do that, right, and when you get away, if you need to get away to do that, and you get to that special place, you can come back to the fold, right? You can come back to the fold and you can do what you need to do, because your brain is going to be better. Your brain is going to be more fit for that activity. Your brain's going to be more fit to help your friends, right? And you can take on anything in life better, whether that's business, whether that's family, whether that's more personal stuff, right? Maybe that's like the gym. Why do you want to go to the gym? Do I need to go to the gym? Like, why don't I want to go to the gym? Am I lazy? I don't think am I lazy? You can go so deep with this, and I'm telling y'all, man, like, you get into this, you're going to lock in, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And if you feel like you're aimless in life, and if you feel like you don't really know where you're going and you don't know, you need to stop and you need to internally reflect. Because I've saved this to the end of the video, because if you're here, I want you to hear this. Like, your brain, there's so many things going on inside your brain. Okay, there's thoughts everywhere. There's ideas, there's memories, there's pain, and it's all inside of there. And when you go in life and you don't stop, and you keep trying to chase stuff, and you keep trying to pursue the next thing, everything just keeps turning around in there, and you don't know what's going on, and you can't have clarity, and so you just keep moving, and you don't stop and think where you're moving. When you stop and you meditate, when you stop and reflect, what you're doing is you're stopping that machine and you're extracting those ideas, right? Right now, you can't decipher the ideas inside your head. You can't decipher what they are because it's unclear. It's in a different language, right? But when you stop and think about it, maybe you write it down, or maybe you put it into a clearer thought, or you close your eyes and maybe you can imagine what you're thinking about, and then maybe you draw it out even. But when you get it into writing, or you get it into a picture, you can actually begin to tangibly mess with that idea, right? You can actually begin to form it and to work with it and to understand it more and to hold it in your hand. And that's so important, guys. Like, that's so important to be able to know how to understand what's in your head and to think about things deeper and critically. It's so important. And I've saved it to the end of this video because if you watched all this way, I really want you to know that, because I feel like I was able to make some strides in my life, and it's because God blessed me with this ability to see that in my own self. And so I want to give that to you guys. And I promise you, this strategy will make your life better. God bless you.